Brand new polling suggests that Donald Trump is beginning to build up a massive lead. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because it appears that Donald Trump is beginning to build up a lead. Yeah, that's right. Despite what Democrats might claim, Trump is in a very good situation to win. Now, I'm not saying that Trump has a 100% chance of winning, but I would argue that as of now, he's in a very good position to win. And quite frankly, the past week or so has been so bad for Harris that Trump's chances of winning the race has gone up dramatically. And for those that don't get what's going on, there's been a lot of polling, a lot of new metrics that dropped, and virtually all of it is a complete disaster for Harris, and it's really good for Trump. And the biggest bombshell of the last week or so came from Gallup. You know, the gold standard of polling, and you could argue, even to this day, they are still a good pollster. They haven't polled a presidential race in like 12 years or whatever, but they have been so good for so long that anything they say, people should take it seriously because they're usually correct. Every now and again, they're off, but most of the time, they're correct. So when they release a chart like this, everyone pays attention because it is bad for Harris. Like, this is not just, oh, it's kind of bad for Harris, but she can recover. No, if they're anywhere close to accurate, you're talking about Harris getting absolutely blown out of the water. This is bad. And for those that don't get what this is saying, these are a bunch of metrics that Gallup has been tracking for like 30 to 40 years now. Things like party identification, economic confidence, you know, approval rating, etc. And nearly every data point they've been measuring for like 30 years now, or 40, nearly every single one of them favors Trump. Look at party identification, 48% Republican. For those that don't know, this metric they've been tracking for like, I think 40 years now. Yeah, since 1992. They've been tracking party affiliation, and it's a complete disaster for Democrats. Look at this. This is the first time ever Republicans have led in party affiliation in the third quarter of a presidential year. Yeah, for the first time ever. They never led back in 2000, 2004, not even 2016. They have never led in the same time period ever. But in 2024, for the first time ever, they have a lead. And it's not just a 1-point lead, no. It's a 3-point lead for Republicans. And you notice a trend? The party affiliation metric is usually spot on to the final popular vote. Look at 2020, it was like D+4. Biden won by 4 points. 2016, D+2. Clinton won by 2, etc. It keeps going. Now, does that mean Trump's going to win by 3? No. But the fact is, one of the most accurate metrics out there has Republicans doing something they have never done in 30 years. This is a big deal. And you look at other things like economic confidence, -28, job approval, 39%, way worse than Trump's. It just gets worse. Party better able to keep America prosperous. 50% Republican, 44% Democrat. That means people trust the Republican Party way more than Democrats. On not just, you know, oh, one thing. Just in general. They trust them on keeping them safe, handling the most important problem, keeping America prosperous. Republicans win on nearly every single metric in this chart. The only two that favors neither party is favorability ratings for each party and congressional job approval. But outside of that, everything else points to a Republican sweep. This is bad. This is DEFCON 1 for Democrats because I don't think it's ever been this bad for either party. I think maybe 2008, but we all know what happened then. It was a landslide. These are historical numbers for the Republican Party and for Trump, of course. And these are just disastrous numbers for Democrats because they're winning nothing. There's no metric here that's good for them. The best one is party favorability. Even then, Republicans have a higher favorability than Democrats. So even the one metric that's kind of close, they're still losing. this is bad. And again, they've been tracking this stuff for like 30 to 40 years. And nearly every metric favors the Republican Party. And not just by 1 point. And nearly everything's by like double digits. Now, some people are going to claim, well, yeah, these numbers look bad for Harris, but look at the head-to-head polling between Trump and Harris. Right now, it's Harris +2, according to the RCP average. Okay, right now, the RCP average has Harris up by roughly 2 points at the national level. Okay. The problem is, these same polls that were wrong in 2020 and 2016, not just by 1 point, but by like 4 to 5 points, they're the same polls showing Harris up by 5, 4, 6, 7, 8 points. The same polls that pull this crap every year are the same ones inflating Harris's lead. If it wasn't for the Reuters poll for Harris +6 or even Morning Consult, more than likely, this average would be like Harris +1. And we all know a Harris +1 at the national level is a Trump win. In the Electoral College, a Trump, or I should say Harris +1 lead is really a Trump win. Because that's the Electoral College. That's how it's made up right now. So celebrating a Harris +1 or even a Harris +2, that's not a lead for her. That's nothing in the Electoral College. And that's assuming that these polls are absolutely spot on, which they're not. These same polls that have Harris up by 6, they're the same ones that back in 2020, they were claiming, oh yeah, Trump is actually down by 12 points. They're the same polls doing the same thing over again. That's the problem. Even these leads that Harris has, compared to even 2020, it's a 4-point difference between 2020 and 2024. Yeah, she's doing 4.5 points worse than Biden at the same time. Hell, a point worse than Clinton in 2016. If the same miss occurs, you're talking about roughly a tied popular vote to a small Trump lead. Is that really a good news for Harris? No. And there's been a bunch of other polls dropped from swing states, and we all know these same pollsters, especially in these same swing states, understate Trump every single year. Especially in Pennsylvania, well, not as bad as Pennsylvania, but, you know, Wisconsin's a notorious example. But look at this. RMG Research. It's a tied race. The same pollster back in 2020, they overstated Harris by like 4 to 5 points. Let's keep going. Oh yeah, Susquehanna. Tied race. They're a good pollster. Let's just keep going. YouGov, they found the race getting closer. Oh yeah, Muhlenberg. One of the most Democrat-leaning pollsters, especially out of Pennsylvania. They have the race tied. The same pollster back in 2020 and 2016, they had it like Clinton +7, Biden +10. It was some ridiculous margin. Yet right now, that same pollster has a tied race in Pennsylvania. And for those that don't believe me, even if you look at the RCP average, it's effectively a tied race. And that's with the Quinnipiac and New York Times poll being garbage. If it wasn't for those two polls, it would actually be a Trump lead. Compare that to 2020, where at the same time period in late September, it was Biden +4. In early October, it was Biden +7. So effectively a tied race in Pennsylvania. I'm not saying this would be a 5-point miss, but if there's a 2 to 3 point miss, you're talking about Trump winning Pennsylvania by 2 to 3 points. The more you look at these same polls, these are not good for her. She is tied in every poll in Pennsylvania except 2 since the garbage Quinnipiac poll. Which again, I don't get how they found Harris +5, but whatever. They found Harris +5 when everyone else found a tied to a small Trump lead in Pennsylvania. And you just keep going. Even Fabrizio, they released a poll out of North Carolina, Trump +3. YouGov, they found the race becoming a lot closer post-debate. So the more you look at this, the same polls people quote, compared to 2020 and 2016, you're talking about a 4 to 5 point shift in nearly every poll. And if there's a 4 to 5 point shift everywhere, you're talking about states like Virginia, Minnesota, New Hampshire, Maine being way closer than they should be. And speaking of Virginia, early voting has gotten even worse for Democrats. Now, to be fair, if this is without mail-in votes. So there's a possibility that it becomes much more Democrat. I get that. But even then, they've looked into the numbers, and this early voting is very similar to that of 2021, when Republicans won the governorship. In fact, it's actually better than 2021. And you see who's actually voting? These are low-propensity Republicans. You know, the voters that we've been all saying for years now will decide the election. Yeah, these same voters that, if they turned out, we're going to vote for Trump by some ridiculous margin, they're voting early. So these are not just high-propensity voters that are voting early and cannibalizing the Republicans' Election Day vote. No, these are voters that are low-propensity. They don't vote, if at all. They vote maybe once every 20 years or something, if that. These same voters, they're voting, and they're overwhelmingly Republican. Look at this. 1,300 0-4 voters. That means people that have never voted in the last 4 cycles that are Republican. Compare that to Democrats. 476. Yeah. Low propensity voters are overwhelmingly Republican. While high propensity voters, you know, people that vote in every election, they're breaking for Democrats by a lot. And of course, this is modeled, so it could be off by a little bit, but either way, these numbers in Virginia, this does not scream a blue wave. This screams, oh, wait a minute, Virginia's very close. And if Virginia's close, what do you think's happening in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan? It's an utter disaster, and you can keep going. There's been a bunch of polls released from Teamsters, for example. Look at this. When Biden was still in the race, he was winning the Teamster support in nearly every swing state. States like Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, by like 20 points, in nearly every single one of them. But after he dropped out, they've swung like 30 to 75 points towards Trump. Yeah, the Teamsters Union. These voters, they were voting for Trump, or I should say Biden, just a couple months ago. These same voters are now saying they support Trump. Let's just keep going. Oh yeah, there's a poll from Notre Dame. You know, what should be a fairly Democrat area, and it was 4 years ago. Notre Dame, it voted for Biden by over 37 points. Which it makes sense because, you know, Biden's a Catholic, and that probably helped them a little bit. But the same poll now found Trump winning by 2. These are people on campus at Notre Dame. Of course they're Catholic voters, so you would think maybe they lean more to the right. But even then, these are not your traditional Catholic voters that are going to be much more conservative. These are younger Catholics. They're going to be more Democrat-leaning. So the fact is, they've swung like 40 to 50 points towards Trump in just 4 years. Is there anything positive I've shown you today for Harris? Early voting's looking like a disaster. Key groups like working class voters, Catholics, they're breaking for Trump by like 40, 50 point swings. Even the polls they're quoting, they're all showing a 4 to 5 point shift from 2020 compared to the same polls. And Gallup releases bombshell. There is nothing positive here at all for Democrats. There's nothing. There's no good news here, and that's why Democrats in recent days, they've started to sweat a little bit. They're starting to panic just a little bit more because they're realizing they're in a lot of trouble. Because the two demographics that will really decide this election, Catholics and working class voters, they're breaking away from Harris, and not just by small amounts. According to the survey from Notre Dame and from the Teamsters, they found a 40 to 50 point shift with working class voters, and Notre Dame found a 40 to 50 point shift with people that are on campus. And again, these are Catholics. Now, like I said, they're younger and they're going to be more liberal leaning, but still, if Notre Dame shifted 40 to 50 points Republican, where's Harris gaining new support from? Where? What type of voter does Harris gain with? If she's struggling with people in Notre Dame, which, like I said, it's Catholic, but it's more liberal. These are people on campus. These are college students. If they're breaking for Trump, which they are right now, do you really think Harris is going to win this election? It's possible they're wrong, but How do you explain a 50-point shift in just 4 years? Teamsters found a similar shift in just 2 months. In 2 to 3 months, they found a 50-point shift towards Trump. And again, that doesn't mean there's going to be a 50-point shift this cycle, but it just means that core demographics that will decide the election, they're breaking away from Democrats at record amounts. And Gallup is finding there are no metrics right now that favor Democrats. We just got to see what happens, but my goodness, there's nothing good here for Dems. There's nothing. Early voting's bad. Key demographics are shifting against them. And even the polls like, quote, they all are finding a 4 to 5 point shift towards Trump. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.